Appreciate it, Coach.
Yep.
Ethan.
Hey, Mike, I know it affects every coach on campus, but I know kind of bracing for whenever potentially revenue sharing becomes a thing soon. I'm curious how that's going to impact your program.
Yeah, I've got about 7 plans, Ethan. There's like 7 different ways this thing can pivot and plan. There's obviously some core guiding principles I think are going to be true to all 7 of those plans. It changes depending on who you follow, what you read. I always know as well that there's just certain information that has to stay private until it's time for me to know. So I don't get too far ahead other than just trying to have all these different models. I mean, I got stacks behind me, and each one of these stacks is a different. If it's this, and this is what it is, this is what we do. If it's this, and I think that's the only way you can do it. Hunter was an unbelievable leader through COVID using that same method of giving us the information when we needed it, and not being too reactive. It's you don't want to get too deep rooted because it can change, and it to nobody's fault or nobody's. It just does. It just changes because of the way the lawsuits go. So until the fairness hearing is over and announced, we're just all kind of in this wait and see. But I think if you wait and see, you're going to be in trouble because I do think once it's announced, it's going to happen real fast. So our plan is to just know which pile to go grab, like, okay, this is what they said. This is what we're doing. This is the pile we need to go. And so there's not just like one blueprint. There's, 6 or 7, and it's probably going to end up being a combination of a couple of them. We've tried to think through all the different scenarios, all the different what ifs. As we talk about the kids on our campus currently, our recruits coming in, the potential of the portal, and the international scene. The one thing that obviously we've got our hand in and boots on the ground a lot of different places across the world is some of the best players in the world are looking at coming over here now because of the revenue share. In the past, a young person that was graduating high school in Australia could get picked up by a WNBA level. It's going to call it the WNBL. They could go play there professionally out of high school and make thousands of dollars. Well, now they can do that here. So now this is an option. And a lot of them want to come play here because that's where the best talent is. So that's one pile. Then you've got still the junior college pile. Then you've still got, because you might get their year of eligibility. Then you've got transfers up, transfers down, transfers from within. You mentioned the revenue share. There's going to be certain schools whose revenue share probably aren't going to allow them to maintain the roster they've had under the current NIL situation. There's a lot of people whose current NIL situation is higher than what the revenue share is probably going to be. So there's going to be some players there. So, we're all kind of in the same. I know it's different for every sport. So I think when us coaches talk, we're kind of probably talking in some generalities, but specific to our sport, we have 7 different potential pivot points. And I'm guessing it won't be any one of them to the, it won't just be that stack. It'll be taking stuff from each stack and making the best. We always plan on a little bit of time after the year, to kind of recharge our batteries. That doesn't exist anymore for college basketball coaches because the transfer portal is wide open all the way through the end of April. So, although we'll go to the Final Four probably and do some coaching clinics and some staff development, you're still actively recruiting all the way through.
Yeah, I'm curious since you mentioned, kind of using these last stretch of games thinking further down the road. Last year you got, I know it kind of lost some steam, the 5-year deal maybe with Izzy, but you got an impact transfer that could come in and, kind of like with Slocum a few years
Yep.
ago, just ready to go. Is there kind of right now in your head a number of those that you think that you need next year?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who it is, but like there's people that will cross you on. You'll see a score go across or something go across, and I don't ever think that kid. Like I'm not specifying that kid, but I do know this. I do know that you always want to know what's going to be attractive to sell to your program. We're going to be graduating a kid who played a lot of minutes and was a vocal point of our offense. And if somebody wants to come in that's ready to do that, it's a tough job. That's a hard job to apply for because there's a lot of pressure that comes with it. It takes very few kids. But I do think we'll be attractive. I think we're going to have a very good, we're calling it money to minutes ratio. We are going to be, no matter what the revenue share is, it's going to really help us. It's going to help us close the gap that we've had. So we're in a really good spot. We're like, I don't want to use the word free agency because it's a bad analogy because free agency has rules and guidelines and standards and stuff that's written down, but it's not. But this, when it gets to that point, we're going to be very attractive to the right type of kid. We know that because we're going to have opportunity, and we're going to be financially closer to the rest of our league than we've been since before NIL started. So there's a sense of excitement. I don't want anybody to get the idea that we're excited about the end of the year. We're not. We are working literally every day. We've made a decision that we're going to work less on scouting things and more on skill development than we ever have this time of the year because of our situation. That comes with living in reality world. I told our kids we have to face the situation and do the best that we can in every situation that we're faced with. So we'll start doing more individual skills. It normally happens later in the year, but as every game passes that we're not into the win column, postseason becomes less and less likely. Then we've got to face reality and get to work on making sure that it doesn't happen again.
Last thing I got for you is, with I guess no timetable for us at least yet with Kiki and Carly, Phoenix, what are you kind of hoping to see, from her kind of having to play those extended minutes?
What we've seen from her, like she is like, she in 4 games has made tremendous progress in the things we asked her to make progress in. She has. Like we've wanted her to play with more confidence. She has. We've wanted her to play with less worry about what happened the possession before. She has. We wanted her to do some things defensively. She has. We didn't want her to play without turning it over. She hasn't turned it over. Her shot will come. Just the pace of the things that's coming at her. She's been really good. She's been really good in that role. Keats will return to practice today in a limited role. Kiki will not. Keats will be day-to-day still in concussion protocol. You never know how that's going to go, but she will start her ramp up, which, depending on how the day goes, she'll be able to do more the next day and then more from that point on. But now Phoenix has been, and her and Izzy learning to play together, knowing, the actions that we want Phoenix to initiate, the actions we want Izzy to initiate, continues to make great strides. And there's going to be a night here in the next 2 or 3 weeks where it all comes together for her. And she goes, 6 for 9 the same night that Izzy goes for 40. And we're going to beat somebody we're not supposed to. That's going to happen, and Jenna comes in and goes, 4 for 6 or something. That night's coming. We haven't had that night. Maybe the A&M was, you always have one game a year where everything goes your way and one game a year where nothing goes your way. I hope our A&M game wasn't, but if it was, we just did them back to back, which that was one thing, Daniel. I didn't say the other night that I wanted to kind of about, but that's the first time in my life we've ever had a game when everything went right, followed by a game when nothing went right. That's the erraticness. That's the sporadicness. And, initially it hurts and it stings and we're embarrassed and all those feelings that we have. But you get back and you realize, these kids, it's the first time for them to go through it. So I'll give them a little bit of grace, but we still got to make some improvement.
Is it one of those things with Phoenix you gotta, even as staff development, remind yourself like when she actually started playing this year, she missed all that non-conference?
Yeah, and the reason we try not to think about it too much is because it just makes us mad. Because there was it was baffling to us and it didn't add up as to it all, but there's nothing we could do about it. It was one of those uncontrollable things. But yeah, we do. We just slow down and say, man, it'd have been nice for her to have played, in 4 or 5 of those games that we played in the non-conference that weren't quad ones. I took a look at that for the first time the other day, and there's only 4 teams in America that have played more quad 1 games than we have. It would have been nice for her to get to play a few games that weren't against a quad 1 team, and a 5th-year senior or, a player, she's had to guard some tough kids. It'd have been nice to go and build a little confidence. Um, we didn't get that in the preseason. So the other thing we've done to her is we've pointed out specific players that she's going against in the SEC that were freshmen once and didn't look like they do now as a fifth-year senior. I think we've got to be great storytellers, and so easy for kids to get caught up in the what's happening right now. So we've been very intentional in pointing out as we've watched film. This kid didn't look like that when she was a freshman. Izzy's talked to her about it. I saw Izzy grab her the other day and say, "Hey, when I was a freshman, this was hard. I didn't, I wasn't on anybody's top of the scout. There's nobody double teaming me when I drove it. There's that. So, it's hard on the kid because they want to be good immediately. The society we built for them rewards that. They don't want you to go through the process, and they make it hard for you to learn from your mistakes. But we got the right kid in her because she's confident. She's not discouraged. She wants to learn. She's already been in hard situations. She's done hard things already. This is just another one in the line. So